Daily Show with CJ Nasello on RiverBender.com. We're just going to bring you both on screen now. Welcome back to our Daily Show on this beautiful 27th day of September. It's a Wednesday morning in the heart of the 618. You know, time and time again, we've talked to Centerstone and local resources and organizations, especially in terms of mental health awareness and ways that we can help ourselves. And it's always good to get that national insight. Dave, Marla, you guys have been a Hollywood power couple for 33 years now almost. And, you know, to have your insights on this morning show is really cool. And thank you so much for your time.
First, thanks for having us. Second, 35 years.
35?
Soon to be 36. I need to catch up.
Indeed. Those are hard-fought years.
Each one of those hours is super important to me, sir. Don't you try to delete. No.
Well, absolutely right, and especially in your guys' dynamic. I mean, Dave, you're a 10-time Grammy Award winner. Marla, you're a realtor, and you've had your television appearances and media appearances too, and really just a dynamic family relationship. Right off the bat, if it's okay for me to ask you, what's made these last 35 years so successful, and how are you guys still here today?
Well, number one, we both have the same answer for that. And Dave and I met when we were in second grade. The story is now, of course, being talked about more widely, but we met when we were 6 and 8. And then in high school, became high school sweethearts. But that was the base of our friendship. Started in elementary school before there was any romance or anything else. And that is the keeper still to the dynamic of our relationship. And to be honest, for me, and my background coming from, I'm the daughter of a major league, a baseball legend. My dad was in the major leagues 40 years between playing and coaching. And I just believe in my heart that it's the best relationships are people who accept the difference between what you do and who you are.
Absolutely.
Right. What he does is back behind us. But who we are is we're flawed people who are human, who have actions and reactions. And to me, there's acceptance and there's truth and there's love. And that's what keeps it.
And I was going to say, it really depends on how you define success, because, whenever I hear someone who's been in a long-term committed relationship, I understand that there have been times when, the feelings just weren't there like they were at the beginning. That's an ebb and flow emotionally. And it's the commitment to the relationship, commitment to the friendship that actually is what binds us together.
Hold on. You don't feel about me today the way you did when you first met? Never mind.
Absolutely. Today, you're right.
I'm making sure it doesn't blow up right here on your podcast. Been exclusive.
Now, before I go any further, I got to ask, did you guys like each other in the second grade in elementary school?
Hell no. No.
In hindsight, I actually did.
No.
She was too easy to pick on.
Let me tell you.
I had to do it.
I have to tell you, this is really an exclusive. When I moved to Huntsville, my father at the time was playing with the Angels in L.A. My brother and I had an incident that was a near kidnapping attempt. And my dad comes home, he says to my mom, listen, my kids need to grow up someplace they can learn to trust people. My mom had gone to college in Huntsville, Alabama. She said, there's an upper middle class town. I went to school there. Let's go see if we like it. My dad loved it. You like it. I love it. Let's move. We moved. And my hair had been cut off into a little afro because I had my mother giving me a perm and my hair had broken off. And so the only thing that was left was my little afro new growth. And I was in the classroom, our classroom in second grade. And every time I went to the bathroom, he would raise his hand and tell the teacher, Miss Galley, he keeps going in the girls' bathroom. And I was like, ooh. One day I'm going to show you I'm a girl.
I guess you were right. You did show.
You know what? I capitulate. You are absolutely
Well, and, going through that too, I mean, Dave, you traveled, your entire career with Take Six and done some really cool things. And Marla, yourself traveling. And then I wanted to ask you, because I know it's got to be difficult with the traveling and going in different directions. And before I ask that question, though, I think a good follow-up would be, Marla, with your dad dad being a professional baseball player, being legendary, going all these different places, did that help a little bit in the dynamic of you and Dave's relationship?
We're going to leave. You don't need us. You have all the answers that we're going to give you. You've met us. Now you can fill in the gaps, put our still picture up there and call it a day.
You're very intuitive.
So you just answered the question. Yes, I was prepared for that lifestyle because of how I grew up. That wasn't out of the ordinary for me. That wasn't as strange for me as it might be for some. Also, the travel part. Now, here's the thing. When you sign up to get married, the one thing that I do feel that I probably have maybe a little bit different in my makeup than others, I felt like I know what this is. I know what he does. I know what it is that we're doing. And so with that in mind, I understood that my responsibility and or role was going to be to manage the family and manage, life as it exists at home, because part of what he did as a career forced him to travel. And that's that. And so I didn't have, I consciously agreed to delay myself. I said, you know what, this is right now, it's about the kids and blah, blah, blah. And then eventually when they get older and everything's great, then I will re-engage my missions and the things that I am. I didn't anticipate that we'd have mental illness that kicked that to the curb, but I'm still fighting my way back. But essentially, that's the answer to your question. Yes, I was prepared for that, and I understood the magnitude and the weight of it, and handled it, with experiential grace.
Absolutely. And sorry, Dave.
I was going to say the same thing you said. Absolutely. And one of the anecdotes that I always tell is the fact that one time I came off the road and Marla had such a well-oiled machine running the household and her schedule and everything. And I came in and she just sort of fit me in as a piece to the schedule. And I felt kind of disrespected. And I said, I know you're not trying to tell me what to do. She finally had to sit me down and basically say, instead of saying just shut the hell up, what she really said was, is that when you leave, I have to now put on the pants and the skirt. I have to be mom and dad when you're not at home. It's difficult sometimes for me to know which role I'm playing. So if you can be gracious enough to allow me to operate in the role that I need to when you come and go, it will work better for all of us. And thankfully, I understood that the wisdom in that as well.
And then shortly after that, the Squirt was born. That was good.
Well, I before I go any further, this is such a great way for, I think, everyone to really tie in, because there's so many in our area. We're a blue-collar community here in the St. Louis Metro East, a lot of hard-working folks, a lot of truck drivers, a lot of traveling jobs, regardless of musician or if you're on the road hauling. I mean, that's a great takeaway is, understanding your role, understanding that dynamic and how that fits and your overall family health. And I think that's so crucial.
Yeah, absolutely. I was raised in a family where, my parents both lived in town, didn't travel that much. So if things got too deep, the story that me and my siblings always heard was, your dad's going to have to handle this when he gets home. But for our family and families like ours, like you mentioned, my family's trade is masonry. We all had to be bricklayers to some degree at one point just to learn the family trade. So I understand that whole blue collar scenario, and a lot of pressure is put on men in those scenarios to be everything that the family needs. But sometimes in those situations, the family needs a strong mom as well. And kudos to those moms who step up.
If I had told my kids, wait for your father to get home, he would have been...
They would have forgot the issue.
My son would have had a beard.
Well, that's a great point, too. And then transitioning into your guys' platform, because doing what you guys do is not easy. I mean, you got millions and hundreds of thousands of people that are kind of looking at and seeing, man, what did Marla and Dave say today? Or look at this. Well, how important was it for you to make sure you had a platform where you could talk about these issues, but also raise awareness? And I'm sure that's kind of a nerve-wracking experience when you decide, all right, let's jump off. We're going.
We didn't make that decision. The decision for the platform that has to do with the things that are most sensitive in our family is one that we landed on. I always say that I was the least dramatic woman that you know, but I gave birth to drama. So the reality is that we were placed out there. And if I'm going to be, first of all, my authenticity is always there, period. So whether it's in a closet or whether you put me at the White House or wherever it is, I'm genuinely going to authentically be myself. So landing on a platform that was so public, but also that was centered around all these issues that were real. I was like, oh, well, now we're out here. So when I make sure that when I'm speaking now, that I encourage everybody when I say things like see something, say something, do something, I'm not encouraging you to go and pick up a computer or a phone and get on social media and air all of your aughts and your family mental health dramas and all these things online. I'm saying we're not talking to the people that are important inside of our nucleus relationships, and that has to change. So for me, it's not, I didn't choose this. I'm responding to it, but I'm responding to it responsibly and in truth and transparency.
Wow. I mean, I couldn't have even phrased that any better myself. I 100% agree. And then, talking about that, I mean, just getting thrown into it, I think a lot of times as people, I don't know how you guys feel. You guys have traveled and met millions, I'm sure, of people, hundreds of thousands. You're sitting there and you don't realize that you're capable of doing these things and capable of handling them. Sometimes you have to get put in the situation, without your kind of approval. But I think it's good to know that we're able to achieve this with a successful dynamic, with knowing our roles, knowing who we are as a family, and all of those very important topics. And I wanted to ask you, as you transitioned a little bit into your children, this has been talked about a lot. I wanted to ask you, because so many parents have the same questions, is when did you start noticing in your children that there was something that needed to be kind of talked about?
I'll say this, we were blessed. We always say that God always has a plan for our particular lives. And, just as usual, it happens that Marla's mom was the chief of nurses for the VA in Southern California. Wow. And she had a background in psychiatric nursing. And she basically, when our oldest daughter was maybe in fourth grade, she said, you know what? I'm starting to see some patterns of behavior.
She said she's really sick. Is what she said.
That she's not well, and you need to look at it. And of course, the kind of blue collar family I came from, it's like, oh, are you kidding me? There just needs to be a behavioral adjustment, and definitely we know how to do that. But she said, nope, it's more than that. And she, to her credit, she didn't let us rest until we actually put our daughter in therapy in I guess junior high. Junior high out here started at fifth or sixth grade. And so through the years, our oldest daughter has had several diagnoses. It's hard to diagnose certain things with a young child, but as she matured and got older, the diagnoses seemed to fit closer and closer to the behaviors that we were saying. As well as our son, our middle child is our son. Same thing for him. He was in therapy, sixth or seventh grade in junior high as well. And
diagnosed with anxiety.
Absolutely. And ultimately, our son was diagnosed with bipolar 1 schizoaffective disorder. And, that's been a very challenging thing for us to deal with. But because we had the pieces in place, as opposed to a lot of families, there was a time that we were on Dr. Phil. We didn't ask to be on Dr. Phil. They found us. They were attracted to our story. And ultimately, we actually felt manipulated. But because, our only goal was to get our son the help that he needed, he ended up being in an IOP, which is an in-house inpatient therapeutic scenario. But that cost us $20,000 a month. So that was something that we could not maintain. They were like, we'll maintain it. And within like a week and a half, our son was in jail and kicked out of the program. So, we've been through issues and things and experiences that we wouldn't wish on our worst enemy. Trust us when we say. But because of the friendship and the basis of our relationship, we've been able to weather the storm, and we're still fighting. Like I said at the beginning, a successful relationship, a successful family is not something that is just the ingredients are there. It's something that takes a lot of work and a lot of commitment.
And as far as what you see, it is normal for a parent to be in denial. You don't want there to be an issue with your kids. And, you know, I started noting things at age 4 with Moniece that were just, and here's what's even more interesting. There was one thing, and I'll share this story. There's one thing that we thought it almost became a party favor for me and Dave. She's talked very early. She would start these stories, these run-on stories. She'd be in the car and so, you know, one day, so-and-so and so-and-so and so, and Dave was talking to me and he said, Marla, did you pick up the shoes? And she hears the word shoe. And then we noticed that
her narrative.
It just integrates that
and then
into her
Bobby's
story.
shoes were on the floor and I had to go pick them up.
And then I looked at Dave, I said, I can't. And then I said, so anyway, blue. And so, then they went down the street and then they tied a blue ribbon and we thought that was like she was
and we
threatened.
could actually just feed her words for hours at a time, and she would just
put them in the story.
Let the story keep going. And we were like, man, she is the most creative person that we've encountered in our entire life. And to some degree, she was.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
She is. But the other side of that was outside of what we'll call consensus norm continued to show itself. And, you know, those things were essential. I can only plug them in retrospect. There's no way for you to identify that as something that you would note as, whoa.
And it was the same thing with our son. You know, I was working with the Backstreet Boys at one time, and, you know, we were out at one of their video shoots, and, you know, I had the family with me just because of what I do. Any chance to have my family, you know, in close proximity is special to me. So my son was talking to Kevin of the Backstreet Boys, and he's telling a story, and we all looked at him and said, wait,
what are you even talking about? Like he started saying some bizarre stuff out of nowhere.
Field. And then now that we understand what we're actually dealing with, the pieces fall into place a lot better. But during the, you know, no one is raised to or is prepares to start a family understanding the issues and the things that we've had to deal with.
They're very covert.
Absolutely.
They're very covert until they aren't. And that's the unfortunate part of mental illness, because to be honest, you, the parent, can only intervene up until age 18. And most of these things aren't diagnosed. Schizophrenia is called the condition of stolen lives, the disease of stolen lives. Why? Because you don't get diagnosed until you're between the ages of 18 and 25. Mm-hmm. Well, that's the prime of your life. So you get all these people who are fracturing in college and on and on. You know, at that point, this is when you're living your best life for most people.
Well, absolutely. And, you know, you hit on something that kind of hit close to home to me is, you know, you're talking about, you know, your mother, Marla, who is, you know, a very smart doctor and has that mental health background. My grandma actually helped run the mental health hospital here in Alton. And just hearing some of those stories and hearing how parents really thought, oh, they're just kids, or he's just, you know, being that, you know, hyper 5-year-old that just wants to tell stories, or she is. I think it's important to talk about those things and realize that no one's alone. It's difficult to kind of pinpoint, and to hear your stories about this is really insightful. And I got to ask too, before we go any further, I wanted to talk about, you know, the stigma of mental illness, because for a long time, I feel like it was this thing where, you know, especially, you know, I felt like if you were a guy saying I'm depressed or I'm, you know, anxious or I'm having all of these things, you were kind of looked down on a little bit differently, but it was for everyone. How important is it for you to, you know, kind of erase that stigma of mental illness and kind of raise more awareness to the resources and organizations like your own?
It's our main number one driver. For me, it's breath. It's that important. Yeah. It's breath, because you know, we accept, it's all about what we're willing to acknowledge and accept. We acknowledge that the body has physical function. You know, we acknowledge that we also are a chemical compound.
But you can break your arm, or you can have, you know, kidney issues, right, or heart conditions. And we understand that needs to be dealt with physically. But our brain is also a physical organ that actually does so much more. It regulates all of the things that we do, all of our behavior, all of the way we process the things that we see, hear, information that we deal with, you know, and sometimes that can be fractured as well. And that's not something that we tend to look at on a regular basis, like going to make sure you get your dentist checkup, make sure you get your checkup with your doctor for your health, make sure you get all your vaccines before you go to school. All those things are necessary. Do we do the same thing for the mind, for the brain?
Well, we also are not willing at this point. To me, the minute we bring mental health in, it immediately becomes not only taboo, but an indictment.
Yep.
Yeah.
Whose fault? Who did this? Like, it's got to be, you don't know how many times.
Look at her as the mother.
Exactly. I would be a millionaire if I could cash in $1 at a time for all the comments public that have been said on social media and other places that, she's got 2 out of 3 of her kids that are mentally ill and one has a different father. It's got to be her.
And when we talk about stigma, it's not just on those that are suffering. It's on the entire family.
Correct.
Yes.
The emotional impact it's almost like, you're shamed for something that you did not participate in or neither did you do. It is a condition, but it is not the fairy tale condition that will garner support. It's not diabetes. What can we do? Cancer? What can we do? If your child has an ailment or a malady that is within social acceptance and norms, it's fine. But the thing I say all the time is, do you understand how ridiculous this really is? Because your brain, like Dave said, not only is it an organ, but it's equivalent. And this is how I like to explain it to people. If you had the most expensive, let's say that I gave you right now, I'm gonna give you a Bugatti.
Oh, thank you.
That's you're very welcome. And not only do you have the Bugatti, you got 35 years of marriage. Not only are you getting a Bugatti, but this Bugatti has been done with 14 karat or 24 karat gold dash. Everything you could think that was the most expensive item in the world is inside this car. But the catch is that the engine doesn't run. Do you have a functioning, is the value there? It isn't. And so why are we so reluctant? We're not reluctant to get an oil change. We're not reluctant to take our car and get it serviced. Systems maintenance light comes on. But when we talk about our brains, it's almost like we just expect this odd normalcy as if it doesn't need any attention at all. And not only that, if it goes amiss, what the hell is wrong with you?
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, 100% absolutely. And with that being said, what do you hope with your overall goal? I think that's the best question for this is, what's your overall goal for both Marla and Dave, for both of you, with your platform to help raise awareness and resources and get rid of this stigma of, hell, if you're going to get your, because I came from the Italian-American family and it took me a little bit to kind of, have that conversation too. It took all of us a long time, but it's so important to get rid of that stigmatization and raise awareness. And with your platform, what's your overall goal for that?
A couple things. The overall goal, number one, our foundation is called Loving Beyond Reason. Mm-hmm. And we got to that because, as I say pointedly, that mental illness kicked the door to my house open and snatched out what was most valuable, 2 of my 3 children. And so with that was born the understanding that the fight that David and I have been willing to wage is what most, even in my family sometimes, feel like is beyond what is love. We love beyond what most consider to be reasonable. And so number one, the function of it is to educate others and to help families like ours who have made the decision to love beyond what's reasonable, because once the kids get to be 18, they need their help center is no less. But what you're able to do for them is greatly diminished, if nothing at all, if they don't agree to get help. And so for us, we found the cracks that are most important, and that is what our first initiative that we're working on is to start our first Loving Beyond Reason Foundation, or Loving Beyond Reason transition home. So it's a step down to people who are in mental health crisis. Yeah. To give them the treatment that they need to be able to matriculate back into some societal norms and move forward. And
anecdotally speaking, one of the cracks that she's talking about is the fact that our son, we found out that once you get to, of course, we all know in the United States that once you get to a certain age, you can no longer be on your parents' health insurance. Yep. The health insurance that he was able to have what we didn't know is that once our son was picked up and taken into the hospital, put on a 5152 hold, which is a 2-week hold where the doctors have assessed that your son needs about 2 weeks to get back on his medication, for that medication to titrate throughout his bloodstream, for him to get back into a consensus norm type of behavior. But the insurance only pays for six days. And so after 6 days, no matter what the doctor says, the hospital is going to kick him out. And then they have to go to what we call a step-down housing, which is not quite on the street, but it's not quite in the hospital as well. And some of those particular places, a lot of them are unregulated.
It's a boarding care.
It's
and
like a
they're
boarding
getting
care.
money per head.
And they get money, but they don't actually take care of the patients that they have in the home. And next thing you know, that could range from pretty good treatment to abysmal treatment. And so that's one of the things in that back end, we decided that we had to step up and provide housing in that situation that was going to be something that would encourage and add to the matriculation back into society of the individual and the patient.
And I think that is such a critical stage. I mean, without that, you can make or break, the recovery or lack thereof with that very step. And I think that's really important. And Dave and Marla, I could talk to you guys for 2 hours. This was so cool. I've gotten the chance to talk to some really cool people, but this was a fantastic conversation. The reason being is I talk all the time. I lost my business and everything that I had when I was younger. I had a great startup going, and it was all because of my lack of my mental health awareness. I didn't realize all the things that I kind of needed to work on and, going through those. But I think it's a huge point. No matter if you're a multi-millionaire, if you're a part of Take Six, if you're a power couple in Hollywood, or if you're just a guy that rambles into a microphone every morning, like I do, it affects us all. And that's why I think it's so cool to have you guys. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much
for having us. For sure. We'll look forward to that. And remember, you want to find us, you can find us at lovingbeyondreason.org. By all means, start there. And for social media, for me, Marla Talks. And for Dave, it's Dave TK6.
Absolutely. And we'll make sure to link all of that in the write-up that we do on this conversation. And Dave and Marla Thomas, thank you so much for your time. So with that being said, we'll take a quick pause here. More of our daily show rolls your way right after this in the heart of the 618.